The question, of course, in America, the mother of all questions, if you like, is who it will be heading to the White House. The polls tell us it's a very tight race, but are there indications other than these polls that are telling us something? Is there reason to be a little doubtful, at least, of the accuracy of these poll predictions? Let's consider Pennsylvania first, the most critical of the states across the country. The styles of campaigning of both the Democrat and the Republican parties are quite different. The Democrats are taking a more granular approach. The Republicans are going for the big sweep, living up to the name of the party, the grand old party, and is doing things in the grand old way. The Democrat campaign is going down to the street level, big and small, is going door to door. The Republican message is the big message from Trump, is the message that is coming through in its amplification rather than from within the neighborhood.
There's a big difference in just the ground game. We call that the ground game, the get out the vote efforts, and that field organizing. The Democrats have a couple advantages here. The first, of course, is that they were able to build on the scaffolding of the previous presidential administrations, whether it be Hillary Clinton, going back to Barack Obama, to Joe Biden, and now Kamala Harris. So there's been continuity there. So field directors, people in the offices, already are familiar with one another, and they're familiar with the work to be done. Donald Trump has really outsourced the ground game to people like Elon Musk, who has no experience in this kind of door-to-door canvassing efforts. And so as we think about what the polls are very, very close, but that doesn't necessarily mean the election will be close, because not everybody who responds to a poll votes. And so I do think that the Harris campaign will be able to get a little bit more turnout than the Trump campaign will.
Second, consider the very extensive registration of new voters in Pennsylvania, a very sizable number of them young women declaring themselves to be Democrats. And this new registration already exceeds the margin by which the Democrats won Pennsylvania in the last election. The Democrats clearly are mobilizing the young and mobilizing women voters very considerably.
There's been really sophisticated campaign efforts in Wisconsin, and really sophisticated campaign efforts by the Harris campaign in Pennsylvania as well. And so that field operation that we started by talking about, part of that is actually getting people to register to vote in the first place. And so I think that we can see that this uptick in voter registration does reflect an uptick, particularly by these women, in support for Harris as well. This is a reflection of the sophistication of the ground game, and I think it does bode well for Democrats.
Are there reasons we should question the reliability of these opinion polls, or at least begin to doubt the extent of their accuracy?
There's two limitations for the polls. The first limitation is not a methodological one, but it's just that in the 1970s, about 30 or 40% of people who were contacted actually responded to the polls. That number has dwindled to now 1%. And so we have no way of knowing who that 1% is. Are those 1% of folks, is that representative of the population, or is it Democrats who are happy about Kamala Harris and they're responding more? The second thing is that all the pollsters are trying to weight their polls to match sort of the elected outcomes in 2016 or to 2020, so that way they don't undercount Trump support. But those assumptions about what the electorate will look like in 24 cannot capture all these new voters that we were talking about already. They just simply cannot capture that. And so that makes it very difficult to have a reliable forecast.
There are reasons to believe that the race may not be quite as close as these polls suggest, and that the Democrats may well win Pennsylvania.